Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome, everyone. First off, I would like to thank the UN Economic and Social Commission for Asia and Pacific, the Asian Development Bank, and the World Customs Organization for organizing this webinar together with us. I am Florence Binta-Diao-Gay, and I'm part of the global policy team at the International Chamber of Commerce in Paris. I'm very pleased to be one of the co-moderators of today's session. For those of you who don't know ICC, we are the global business organization, the institutional representative of 45 million companies, from MSMEs to macro companies across all sectors and industries in the world. We are also the only business organization that are permanent observers to the United Nations. I'm delighted to kick off today's webinar on disruptive technologies that are applied to cross-border transactions. In today's globalized world, this topic is more important than ever, and we have some great speakers for you on board today. Some housekeeping rules. You can raise your hand and we will see how we manage with time. And you can also submit questions in the Q&A box, and we will try to take a few after the first panel discussion, and there will also be an allocated time slot after the case studies. So in this webinar, we will first hear from renowned members of each of the co-organizers of the session, and we will then continue with a panel discussion. In the second half of this webinar, we will look at a few case studies. So without further ado, we will see videos by each of our co-organizers, starting with Mr. Jan Duval, Chief of the Trade Policy and Facilitation Section in the Trade, Investment and Innovation Division at ESCAP. And then we will hear from Mr. Brendan O'Hearn, who's the Deputy Director of Procedures and Facilitation at the World Customs Organization. After Mr. O'Hearn, we will see a video by my colleague, Mr. Oswald Kühler, who is Managing Director of the Digital Standards Initiative at the ICC. And last but not least, we will hear from Ms. Sin Young Park, who is Director of the Regional Cooperation and Integration Division at the ADB. So let's see the videos.
So greetings from Bangkok and ESCAP. On behalf of the Trade Policy and Facilitation team at UN ESCAP, I'm very pleased to welcome you to this webinar on disruptive technologies applied to cross-border transactions. So this webinar is part of a series of webinars organized by ESCAP, ICC and ADB together. So far we've had three webinars, one on single window interoperability, one on electronic certificates, and one on blockchain. So this one is a little bit broader. It's on disruptive technologies that can facilitate trade and cross-border transactions. So I'm very pleased to see the large number of experts, both from the private sector and the governments who are participating today in the panel and also presenting case studies. So thank you very much to all the speakers for their valuable time. I also would like to make a special mention of the colleagues from the World Customs Organizations. We've been collaborating closely this time around for this particular webinar, so we always welcome collaboration with the World Customs Organization and looking forward to more such collaboration in the future. So with no further ado, I hope you enjoy the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome to the webinar on disruptive technologies applied to cross-border transactions, and to all the speakers and attendees. My name is Brendan O'Hearn, and I'm the Deputy Director of Compliance and Facilitation in charge of the Procedures and Facilitation Subdirectorate here at the WCO. I would like to express my sincere thanks to ESCAP, the ICC, and the ADB for this timely webinar series on accelerating cross-border paperless trade facilitation and the opportunity for the WCO to co-organize this webinar. Through our members' experiences shared at WCO technology-related events, such as regional workshops on disruptive technologies and the WCO TechCon, it has become evident that blockchain, Internet of Things, and big data are already transforming the work of customs, and most importantly, supporting the facilitation of cross-border trade. Our study on disruptive technologies shares insights and encourages customs administrations to reap the benefits of the opportunities they present. It brings together lessons learned and recommendations stemming from the research and pilot projects, as well as some more aspirational and innovative propositions for their use in the future. I look forward to this webinar, which will, no doubt, provide us with exciting insights into the implementation of disruptive technologies along the global supply chain by the private sector and customs authorities. Thank you, and I wish you an enjoyable seminar.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I want to start off by thanking all of our attendees. Thank you so much for opening up the time and joining us. I want to thank our panelists for doing the same and also bringing a lot of their insights into the conversation so that we can all collectively learn from them. And finally, I want to thank those who are presenting case studies. Thank you so much, and I'm very sure that a lot of us are going to find some real reasons to be inspired today. My name is Oswald Kaler. I'm the Managing Director of the DSI at the International Chamber of Commerce, where we truly believe that the digitization of trade processes is not so much a question of if, but rather when. As a global community, we've been on this digitization process now for quite a period of time, and our view is that the technology is there to enable it. There are model laws like the UNCITRAL model law for electronic transferable records out there that again can help enable that transition from physical paper to electronic records. And that as a global collective now with standards in hand, we can have a look at all of the various different technologies and those who enable it to see how do we go on this journey, build the capability and extract value as we go through the process. So thanks for joining us. This is quite an important topic and let's learn together. Thank you so much.
Good morning, good afternoon. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome all of you to today's webinar on disruptive technologies for cross-border trade. The COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated paperless transactions around the world. As governments have introduced social distancing measures to curb the virus spread, businesses have embraced new technologies to reduce contacts and improve trade facilitation. Our latest joint research with UN ESCAP on trade facilitation looked into this trend combined with the impact of digital transformation on paperless trade. Trade costs have been rising. Together with supply chain disruptions, this led firms to adopt new technologies such as big data analytics, Internet of Things, and artificial intelligence to enhance efficiency in monitoring and management of global supply chains. I believe this trend will continue even after the pandemic. Nevertheless, many developing economies still rely on paper-based trade documents and face-to-face transactions. Private sector participants also note this. The use of fintech and digital solutions remains limited because of high costs of technology, limited interoperability, and the lack of information and expertise. With the regional economies gradually moving to the next phase of economic recovery, broadening recovery in global trade and investment will be key to making this recovery path more inclusive and sustainable. Paperless trade will be one of the key elements to support this process. Cross-border exchange of e-documents, digital processing, and national single windows can further reduce trade costs. Digitalization of trade can also contribute more inclusive trade for SMEs and women-led firms. Despite the visible progress, many remains to be done. we need to make more efforts in digital and paperless trade facilitation to realize full potential of trade gains for more inclusive growth and development. I believe we have an exciting panel discussion and case studies in today's webinar. I look forward to participation from all audience and speakers. Thank you.
Many thanks for the opening remarks. And so let's get started with the first panel discussion. We will start with Ms. Milena Budimirovic, Senior Technical Officer of Procedures and Facilitation at the Subdirectorate at the WCO. And she's involved in the development of trade facilitation tools and instruments, and was leading the WCO study report on disruptive technologies that was already launched in 2019. She's also the main coordinator of the WCO's key committee dealing with procedures and facilitation, the Permanent Technical Committee. That is actually meeting this week and also this afternoon. So thanks so much for taking the time to be with us today. And we will try not to take too much of your time. So over to you, Milena.
Thank you so much, Florence, for this introduction, and a good day to all our viewers. I think all over the world today. So I'm very happy to be here to present on the study report on disruptive technologies, which was already mentioned in the introductory remarks by our Deputy Director, Brendan O'Hearn. So without further ado, I know we have very little time. I will move to the presentation. I will share my screen. And you will see that slides are quite extensive. They are for your viewing after this event. I won't be able to talk on all the points, but to give you more of a short overview in the time that I have. So first of all, I would like to say that this study report on disruptive technologies that was developed in 2019, as Florence had mentioned, is quite insightful and provides a lot of interesting information about what customs are doing already in terms of implementing disruptive technologies. But I think it's also very interesting for all those that are involved in international trade in one way or another. So maybe to give you just a little bit of a background as to why we developed it, namely in 2005 under the Permanent Technical Committee, also mentioned by Florence, there was an initiative to establish a Future of Customs virtual working group. And the intention of this group was actually to look at what are those developments that are happening around the world that could have an impact on the customs work in the future. So 2 years later, after a lot of work that we were carrying out, the PTC decided to direct this group to focus on disruptive technologies in particular. And as a result of that, 2 years later, we had completed and endorsed the study report on disruptive technologies. It is publicly available on our website, so please have a look at it. It's really quite an interesting read. And the objective was to actually raise awareness of the latest technologies and what are their potentials. So this was mainly for policymakers, but also for all customs officers that were interested in further or involved in further introducing technologies in their administrations. And this study report actually brought together the discussions and outcomes of the discussions on technologies that were taking place in different working bodies in the WCO, in our technology conference, and other forums. But also it included some interesting proposals from our Future of Customs working group members on how these technologies could be used in the future. So maybe just a little bit of an overview. The study report covers 7 different technologies. So blockchain, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence and machine learning, biometrics, drones, virtual reality, and 3D printing. It looks into what are these technologies more broadly, how are they used in customs, as well as border management, and as I said, how they can be used in the future. So what are the benefits and risks? What are the challenges in implementation? So the information that was available at that time, but we know that this is really an evolving area, and therefore it's a moving target, really. In case of 3D printing, this is something that, of course, would not be beneficial for customs, at least that is our opinion at the moment, but definitely something that we looked at in terms of what would be the impact on customs if there was a huge increase in 3D production. What we also did was provide a bit more information on what would be the necessary strategy to have behind technology, especially considering that all these technologies are very much interconnected, which one to adopt first, how to move on with implementation, etc. We also included recommendations on implementation of these technologies that were actually developed with our private sector consultative group. And I think a very valuable part of this study report are the 21 use cases. As I might have mentioned, we are in the process of updating this study report, which should be available in its final form in June next year. So maybe just to start off first with blockchain technology, which I think is attracting most attention, I would like to just give a few pieces of information that I think are most critical. First of all, I would like to also mention that at the moment we have at our Permanent Technical Committee submitted a paper that brings together outcomes of a survey that was carried out this year on the use of 3 technologies in particular, and that's blockchain, Internet of Things, and artificial intelligence, machine learning, data analytics. And the outcomes of these survey results fed into a paper that was developed by the WCO and the World Trade Organization jointly. This paper that describes the use of advanced technology by customs in terms of facilitating and securing cross-border trade will be available very soon, again publicly, and after the PTC. So this is what we I would just like to announce already. But the interesting thing is that we have seen that through this survey that there are already there's a lot of interest in blockchain technology, and for customs, it is really in the process of being tested. So there are around 40 different pilot projects, proofs of concept around blockchain technology, and only 2 actually administrations have reported on full deployment of this technology, which is quite interesting. But the most important thing is that there is a lot of interest in it. There is a lot of agreement as to the advantages that this technology can bring. And that is basically having available information from more reliable sources, and at the same time to all stakeholders that need to have that information. And of course, for customs, this is particularly important, bearing in mind that customs needs to assess risks and to make sure that this helps also in facilitating trade across borders, but also in controlling and carrying out our other functions like control functions. So definitely something that we all agree on is that it could be extremely beneficial in the future. However, we have also seen that there are lots of challenges that are visible already. I would really encourage you to have a look at that paper that we will be publishing very soon. That will provide all those results. In any case, this is something that we're looking out for and exploring to a large extent. When it comes to the Internet of Things, this is another technology that has that is being implemented quite widely by our members. At least 50% of those that have responded to the survey that I've mentioned are using Internet of Things technologies in one form or another. So it's basically about using different solutions and integrating the results or data collected through those solutions into the processing systems of customs, also to be used for the purpose of better risk management and ultimately better trade facilitation and security. And we do see a lot of solutions where, such as, for instance, car plate readers are used by customs, X-ray scanners for collecting X-ray images and exchanging them with other administrations, barcode and QR code readers, cameras, etc. One of the main challenges is about integrating those the data collected into the processing systems. Nevertheless, some administrations are doing that quite successfully. It's also about looking into opportunities for plugging into what is already available out there by private sector stakeholders or by the traders themselves, or the private sector companies that are really very much looking into tracking their goods along the supply chain, having that information available on the goods, and looking into how customs can plug into that information and make good use of it, again, for facilitating and securing cross-border trade. I would also like to mention artificial intelligence, machine learning, and data analytics. That is something that is, I would say, from the technologies mentioned, really maybe the most widespread and used in customs. There are a lot of different interesting case studies on the use of these technologies, which are, again, extremely beneficial for artificial intelligence and machine learning. And I think this is maybe the area where we have seen so many use case studies that are also will be available in this paper that I've mentioned. But for instance, revenue collection models, classification of products, customs audits, risk-based targeting, analyzing container images from X-ray scanners, and allowing for automated threat detection are only some of these use cases that are available. In terms of biometrics, that's something, as I said, we covered as well, maybe something that is a bit more interesting for those administrations that are covering the immigration function, which is a limited number, so not all are doing so. However, our Future of Customs working group found some interesting examples of how this could be used for security purposes in the supply chain as well. So something to look at as well. When it comes to drones, drones are also being used more and more by customs, certainly to surveil, for surveillance of borders, or also for performing some controls that are maybe more difficult to carry out by humans. In any case, we saw a more expanded use of drones also during the pandemic, when contactless controls were definitely something that was desirable. When it comes to virtual, augmented, and mixed reality, we don't see much use of this technology for the time being. We have one example of it used by one of our members, and even not by customs, but another law enforcement agency that uses it for basically recreating some dangerous I would say, environments for the purpose of training. However, our customs, Future of Customs group saw some interesting ways of using it in the future. And yes, this comes to the final one slide of my presentation. I would just like to mention that the study report on disruptive technologies will be updated by June next year and available after that publicly. So look out for that. We will feed the outcomes of the workshops on disruptive technologies that were mentioned by our Deputy Director, and also from the TechCon, which he also mentioned. I would like to use this opportunity to invite you all to the WCO TechCon that's happening on the 10th and 11th of November. It's open to everyone, so register quickly. There are limited seats, and we will be focusing on international standards of relevance for interoperability and for automation of cross-border trade. So look out for that. Thank you very much. Over back to you, Florence.
Thank you, Milena, for this interesting presentation. And it's very good to see that the WCO is helping to raise awareness on disruptive technologies for customs authorities. And yes, I really recommend the tech conference. Maybe you can put a link into the chat, and then people can see it. And I would also like to say that the presentations are available on the website of this webinar, and there's also a link to them in the chat. So in the interest of time, I would like to move already to our next speaker, Ms. Hope Liu. She's Head of Strategy for Asia at MineHub, and MineHub enables the connection involved in a physical commodity transaction in a digitally integrated workflow. And it's using blockchain technology. So as the name suggests, it is built for the global mining and metals industry and enables users to track every step of the way in the supply chain. And I will not say more and leave the floor to Ms. Hope Liu. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Florence, for the introduction. Hi, everyone. This is Hope from MineHub. I'm the head of Asia strategy based in Singapore. It's an honor to be on the panel today with Milena, as well as Jess. So please allow me to share my screen right now. Okay, cool. So let me start my session with some background information about MineHub and myself. Founded in 2018, MineHub is a platform company leveraging blockchain technology to build end-to-end digital solutions for global trade. We started in mining and metals industry and now expanding to other commodity lines as well. So MineHub recently became a public listed company on the Toronto Stock Exchange just in last month. And the MineHub team is present in key locations in the Americas, Europe, and Asia. I joined MineHub earlier this year in February, and prior to joining MineHub, I've been building enterprise blockchain solutions for global trade in the past 5 years, including my previous venture, which was created from a school project in MIT Media Lab. And as the head of strategy Asia at MineHub, I support the building and commercialization of electronic trade documents, digital integrated solutions for cross-border trade, and ESG disclosure and compliance verification. In the next few minutes, I would like to use this opportunity to give some high-level introduction about what we do and who we work with at MineHub. And also, I'll be sharing a very specific use case later during the case study session. So you also see me later. So first of all, who do we work with at MineHub? So MineHub has been co-created with a wide range of companies, including several that are the largest in their industry and segment, like BHP in mining, Vale in iron ore, Wheaton in streaming, ING in banking, Baowu in steel, and IBM in tech. We're also working with organizations like the ICC on defining and promoting open standards. So what do we do at MineHub? At MineHub, basically we provide end-to-end digital solutions and connect all the parties in the trade ecosystem to virtually integrate their operations team into shared workflows across the companies. We started with miners, processes, and financiers. So now they are on our platform, and we have been moving to service and logistics providers to complete the trade ecosystem. And our core platform solution takes the paper and document-heavy processes across multiple channels and replace them by one platform where the parties involved in the transaction can collaborate on a shared single source of truth so that we can provide real-time visibility and control over the transactions. This is much more efficient, and it enables companies to use the data and own the data, not just process it. This is what our core platform does. It is live now, and we have started signing up and onboarding customers. So we call it core platform as it provides the foundation layer for high-value applications and ventures that we're building on top of it, or partner solutions that we're connecting to it. But we have also started building and working on a couple of applications in collaboration with our partners on top of the core platform. For example, trade finance is a logical extension. We have already launched with live transactions and will be scaling to next phases in the next few months. This will enable our users to access trade finance from non-banking sources. We're also building features for concentrate contracts and transactions for base metal companies. And also our ESG carbon tracking app helps users to automate their Scope 3 carbon emissions accounting and ESG compliance verification. We would like to quickly share with the audience that a recent use case we're working on. So we've been working with our client and partner on designing an integrated digital solution for a seamless cross-border mine-to-mill iron ore super supply chain. So MineHub will be providing a trusted data utility layer to support the real-time information sharing across multiple actors, systems, processes, and borders. In this case, outside and inside mainland China. We believe this approach will reduce the frictions and delays caused by manual data handoffs across different parties throughout the shipment, port, as well as offtake processes. By achieving this goal, we can unlock potential values such as port inventory management, seamless cross-border movement, access to working capital, and also traceability to carbon emissions. Right now, we're working closely with our partners with an aligned vision to digitally integrate all the system into the mine-to-mill value chain and better facilitate the cross-border transaction. So with that, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity for me to share our technology and use case today, and we welcome questions and interest from the audience. Thank you.
Many thanks, Hope, for this great presentation. And I see there are already some questions, but in the interest of time, we're going to try to hear from our next speaker first, Mr. Jesse Chennard. And just a few words. He's a technology entrepreneur and investor, the CEO and founder of Monet that he launched in 2014. And this financial technology solution provider is one of the pioneers of the industry and has achieved a milestone by deploying the first enterprise blockchain network used in day-to-day operations by the financial services industry. With more than 2 million financial transactions having already been executed, leveraging its secure financing network, we are very excited to hear from you. So the floor is yours.
Excellent. Thank you, Florence, and thank you to ESCAP and everyone for hosting this event. Hopefully, everyone's getting some good value. I've already been learning some stuff myself. So with that, I'll dive into a little presentation on Monet and what we're up to over here. So one of our main products at Monet is really around secure financing, and it's focused on the trade finance space. We were, I think a lot of this was covered quickly by Florence there, but we started about 7 years ago, started in New York, quickly found that the Asia Pac region was one of the more faster growing and really embracing new technologies with, the MAS in Singapore, really pushing them fintechs and what have you. Cool. So anyway, the problem that we address at Monet is really around how do you do cross-border trade and how do you do financing and factoring even domestically without worrying about the duplicate financing problem. So if you look at some of the scandals or not scandals, but things that happened on the left, you see that there is a lot of fraud that happens when one person pledges an asset across multiple different lenders, and obviously this is problematic not just for the industry but also the regulators and the banks themselves who are left holding the bag. And so the other piece that we sort of see as being sort of interesting here is not just that we can reduce fraud, we can reduce these sort of attempts at criminal transactions, but also the knock-on effect of once you start to de-risk this space, trade finance space, once you get to all the different technologies that were mentioned earlier by Monet and the others, blockchain and digitization of all these processes, we will start to see this trade finance gap that everyone talks about. It's just exploded recently. We'll start to see this trade finance gap brought down. And so the cost of credit, the ability for banks to finance SMEs that they may not have been able to finance before, really our goal is to figure out how to de-risk all this stuff. So if you go to the next slide. So our main solution around our secure financing platform has two components to it. One is the document fingerprinting. So because people obviously don't want to share their invoices and their information and can't share it in a lot of cases due to regulatory or bank secrecy acts, What we do is we create a fingerprint of the document. I'll get into that a little bit later. But then we also look for other data sources like customs data, goods and services tax network data in India, shipping data, e-way bill data, and look to tie it back to the underlying asset that's being financed to basically give, again, a little bit more comfort to the lender that their invoice is indeed genuine, that it hasn't been financed elsewhere, and that the contents of, say, the shipment match what was in the e-way bill or whatever other source of information we can get around it. So if you go to the next slide. So document fingerprinting, very, very briefly touch on this. So instead of taking the invoice and registering it into a common network and then doing matching there, for all of the various reasons around regulatory concerns, privacy concerns, we do what's called a fingerprint. And I won't bore you with cryptography or what have you, but basically we take several elements from the invoice and we run it through an algorithm. That algorithm will always produce the same output with those same inputs. And so when an invoice is presented to a financier, they run it through our system. They create this fingerprint and register on the network as financed or not. Now then a second borrower might be presented, or sorry, a second lender might be presented with the same invoice. They would then create that same fingerprint and then thus be alerted that that someone else has financed this on the network, and then probably they would not go forward with that transaction. So it's nice in that it's secure. It's a one-way hash. So the participants of the network, all they can see is just a bunch of data strings. But again, once they are presented with the same invoice, bill of lading, any type of purchase order, they're able to then securely and quickly in real time determine that it's been financed elsewhere in the universe. Next slide, please. So the other piece that we started to look at as well was, okay, it's very interesting, obviously, and important to make sure that you can identify whether an invoice has been financed elsewhere, but then also what other value can you add? You know, as these financiers are going through the process of making a decision, what other data sources can we get? Can we get the customs data? Can we pull stuff in from the Internet of Things, you know, shipping data, access to stuff on the containers, or even flow meters on oil storage facilities? And so what we've done in India with their initial launch platform, I'll dive into that pretty quickly in a minute, but what we've done in India is we basically look into the goods and services tax network, because they've got an e-invoicing system over there that basically requires them to take all the information and register it with the government. And so we're able to look into that and say, yes, the invoice information that's registered with the goods and services tax network matches what is being presented to you for financing. So again, it's not 100% assurance, but it's another data point that makes them feel a little bit more comfortable making that financing decision. Next slide, please. So as I alluded to, we started this platform in India. It was really a domestic focused platform. There were 3 invoice exchanges that were going live or had gone live. They were encountering this problem of multiple invoices being financed across multiple platforms. So we built them a very simple blockchain solution that was initially built on a Hyperledger Fabric. We deployed about 3 years ago. As Florence said, we've processed over 2 million invoices in that time. Because of the resiliency and what have you of blockchain, it's 100% availability. And in India was interesting. We partnered with Swift in India, whereby they can offer it out through their Swift terminals, through the Swift services, to their member banks. They see it as a value add that important for their community. So it's been a very good learning experience, which will bring us into the next slide. And so when we started to look at different countries out there, especially here in Asia, that wanted to deploy solutions around secure financing, preventing duplicate financing of invoices, what we realized is that people were starting to or going down the path of creating digital islands. And as Oswald from the DSI likes to say, that's a bad thing. And so we started to look at how do we standardize this. So through our work with Swift in India, we started to talk to Swift Global about creating a standardized API, creating a unified approach that would enable other networks that are focused on this problem, but also the larger banking community to take a global approach to this. So we launched we're launching the global version of this in Q4 of this year. We're working with Swift, again, make it available through their API so that banks get more of a one-stop shop, and also they get the security and the trust of operating over the Swift network. Next slide, please. So the benefits of our fraud risk solutions are pretty apparent. Obviously, we have a lower fraud rate, which saves money for the borrowers. We have lower financing costs. Ultimately, we believe this will start to address the financing gap. And long term, as we all know, this is going to drive global trade. MSMEs or MSEs are the lifeblood of the economy, and so the ability for these guys to get out there and borrow at more attractive rates is going to be beneficial for everyone. And I think we can end on that because I think I've touched on the company already. So
thank you very much, Jesse.
No
and
problem.
I think we learned a lot. And I have to say I was quite shocked with the numbers of fraud. So it's really great that this is also addressed by your technology. And I was going to take a few questions, but actually all the questions have been answered by our speakers already. So I recommend for the participants to have a look in the Q&A box. And since we're already a bit over time, I would like to pass the floor to Christian Lemke of the WCO that will lead us through the case studies. Thank you.
Thank you, Florence, and good day, everyone. My name is Christian Lemke, Technical Attaché at the World Customs Organization, Subdirector Facilitation, and be delighted to be your moderator for this session. I can see we have about 200 participants, which shows great interest in this timely topic, which is great. In our last session, 3 excellent speakers have already given us insights into the current state of disruptive technologies. In this session, 3 case studies of custom authorities and private sector in the main group of disruptive technologies, such as big data with artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and blockchain, will show us how these technologies have transformed the monitoring of cross-border movement of goods and supported the facilitation of global trade. You have the opportunity to ask questions with the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We will pick up some important questions and raise them to the speakers after the presentations in our Q&A session. Please try to keep your questions short and, if possible, name the speaker to whom you would like to address your question. As said, we will now start with Mr. John Jong-le, Senior Assistant Director at Korea Customs Service. Korea Customs has been at the forefront of big data analytics, so I'm very excited about this presentation that will show us how Korea Customs use big data models to streamline the customs clearance process. Over to you, Mr. Jong. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Christian, for introducing me. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Young Nejeon. I'm working at the Korea Customs headquarters now. So today I introduced one study case for the Korea Customs Services, the big data strategy. So I hope every participant will have the great takeaways from my presentation. Okay, so now that I'm going to start with my presentation. So first I have to share my presentation. So this one, okay. Okay, so now that I hope that everybody can see well my presentation. So
yes.
Okay, so for a smooth explanation, my step, actually I divided my presentation into 5 parts, which you can see now on the screen. So I'm going to proceed with my presentation as this order. Okay, so the first page, before I get started into today's main topic, so I just want to show you the Korea Customs inbound cargo status from 2006 to 2019. For the last decade, even though human resources of Korea Customs Services were, almost the same, however, as you can see on the screen, the express cargo has increased almost 9 times, and general cargoes is also increased 4 times. So, this is why Korea Customs Services has initiated the big data strategy, and especially for the customs areas. We just wanted to enhance our efficiency of the customs administration by adopting new technologies. For more details, until 2016, we call this period as the structured data-driven risk management phase, which we only focused on the structured data in analyzing the customs risks in customs areas, not the structured data. And according to the internal statistic figures, the volume of the unstructured data in customs has increased, by 22% year by year since 2017. From 2018, we also call this period as the big data-driven risk management era in customs, Korea Customs Service, because we actually began combining all the data from internal and external, and plus semi-constructed data and also an unconstructed data. And we are analyzing them by high-tech technology, such as the big data analysis tool or the AI algorithm. So this page is full also, regarding the, how we approached and explained that what Korea Customs did for implementing the big data strategy. Actually, in 2017, we researched and benchmarked, a lot of the best practices from others, including the private area. So with those structured data, we established the mid or the long-term strategy plans during 2 years. At that time, we thought, even though we had a great plan for implementing our strategies, but we needed the more concrete capacity building plan for boosting the data analytics for internal use. So we made a plan to have actually the 100 internal big data expert in customs in 5 years, from 2017 to 2021. Every year, we chose and selected 20 customs officers who were very keen and also qualified for taking a leading role in customs big data analysis and customs. So they got an intensive training course for 6 months. Fortunately, as of this year, we got 100 internal big data experts as we planned it. For better effectiveness and efficiency of the implementing big data strategy in our Korea Customs, we established task force team in January 2020, and finally established a big data center in July at the same year. So I could say now that all the big data driven projects in Korea Customs Services are working on under this division. Regarding big data and AI models, we've been developed until now. We can divide them based on the establishment of the big data portal, which was launched in 2020. So on this slide, I will explain the 4 models which were developed between 2017 to 2019. So the first one is AI customs clearance system. This measures the risks of the import and export companies and items based on the customs declaration data. And through this system, we made the customs clearance processes more simple and fast and streamlined for low-risk cargoes. And however, for high-risk cargoes, we added more control. The second one is AI X-ray. When we considering the monitoring time, which was usually given to customs officers to read X-ray images in the field areas, such as airport, and it's actually less than 1 minute to screen or monitor each item. So this initial purpose of this model is to help and ease the custom officers' workload and to seek a more efficient way for the risk management. This program is still in the middle of the development, but we started with 9 items to read in 2019. But now we have increased the items we can read throughout the system. So the numeric things, the number is the 54 items to read throughout this system at the moment. The third one is AI trade finance monitoring system. This program is combining all the data from the everyday customs transaction data and also a foreign exchange record and overseas companies information. Under AI machine learning and AI rule-based algorithm, we monitor the trade flow and the foreign exchange flow of the trade companies in Korea. And through this system, we've identified a Korean company who committed the financial fraud and manipulated their price, which was $130 million. The final one is the big data. Big data is the program name. So as you can see, as you can guess from this program name, that means that we can find a big and more significant one by using this model. So actually the big data consists of the 3 individual programs, which are passenger risk management and export-import supply chain and a bypass enforce of delinquent. This program is a correlation analyst model. So it shows every relationship with high-risk people or cargoes throughout the visualization technologies. So through this system, now that we can select high-risk passengers at the airport less than 1 minute. So just comparing, in the past, we did this kind of similar passenger analysis process manually for almost 2 hours. So I think it's very amazing and quite remarkable. So moving on to the year of 2020, since we established and launched the big data platform in January of 2020, now that every big data and AI technology related analysis project in Korea Customs Services are working on and under this big data platform. So $11 million were invested for developing this platform. And now that 15 internal customs big data expert and almost 70 external big data experts are working together on this platform. At the moment, we've loaded the 12 completed analysis models in this platform. So, we can divide all the models into 3 categories, but due to the time limits of the speakers in today's session, so I just want to share you each category just on the screen without detailed explanation of each analysis model from the next page. So the first, for analysis model for safeguard the customs photo aspect, the first one is issue and trend prediction model, which is used normally or usually used for policy decision making. And second one is the using the clearance requirement data model. And third one is import good prediction, price prediction model. And the final one is access and task risk models. The second category is for maximizing customs administration's efficiency. So the first one is the supply chain transaction visualization model, and second one is unstructured document association analysis model, and the third one is certificate of origin automation model, and the final one is the visualizing vessel information matters. The last full analysis model is for the public service aspect. The first one is supporting and small medium-sized expert model, which is we create customs usually used for a customs consultation phase for exporters. And second one is the customs data map for the internal use. And third one is chatbot service. And final one is providing HS code predictions. Okay, now that I think I've reached the final page of my presentation, so I sincerely hope you enjoyed my explanation. And even though we Korea Customs are very, actively working on the utilization of disruptive technology in the customs field, and we still feel we should do more and more to respond well to under the ever-changing trade customs environment. So I guess it must be a long way. But however, at the moment, even though at the moment we are sure we customs are improving and also expanding our customs relevance for the next smart customs. And in this respect and collaboration and the sharing all the information between customs and relevant international organization and also including the private sector. So really important in essential. So in this context, today's webinar is, I think, very well organized and very time mannered. So thank you for listening and good luck to all of you. And thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. John. It's really impressive how big data analytics enable streamlining customs clearance process while improving risk assessment despite rapidly increasing movement of goods. So good job. So we come to our next speaker, which is Mrs. Serene Wing-Se-Loin, Senior Inspector at Hong Kong Customs and the current officer in charge of the Intermodal Transshipment Facilitation Scheme and Single ELOG Scheme. Mrs. Serene has already informed me that she will have to leave the webinar after the presentation and will therefore not be available for the Q&A session, but she will answer the question afterwards via email if you provide us with your email address. Ms. Serene, please show us how the flow of goods has been facilitated thanks to Internet of Things using GPS devices. Thanks you.
Thank you, Christian. Good afternoon from Hong Kong. This is Serene, Senior Inspector of Hong Kong Customs and Excise Department. So let me share my PowerPoint slides first. Yep, I hope everyone can see it. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So today my presentation would be on the technologies being used in one of the trade facilitation schemes of Hong Kong Customs, the Single ELOG Scheme. To facilitate the flow of goods between Hong Kong and the mainland China, Hong Kong Customs continues to take forward various schemes in collaboration with the mainland customs with a view to enhancing cargo clearance efficiency. So launched in March 2016, the Single ELOG Scheme targets air, land, and sea land transshipment cargoes that are directly transshipped between Hong Kong and Guangdong, China through Hong Kong Customs designated clearance points. So take an example. Let's say a shipment arriving from overseas and then transshipped through mainland China by cross-boundary trucks would pass through 4 customs clearance points. That is the Hong Kong International Airport, Lok Ma Chau Control Point, which is one of the land boundary control points in Hong Kong, and Huanggang Port, which is a land boundary control point in China. And finally, Foshan Clearance Point, which is located at inland in China. So imagine a shipment is selected for inspection at all the customs clearance points that I've mentioned. So in order to strive for a balance between law enforcement and trade facilitation, we need a new technology solution to render customs clearance between Hong Kong and Guangdong, China in a more convenient, efficient, and more importantly, a secure way. So the single elog, which is literally a mechanical lock, contains 2 chips, allowing the 2 customs authorities to make use of GPS technology and on the principle of crossing the boundary with 1 single elog under separate monitoring to monitor the status of the elog and the movement of the goods vehicle to safeguard against any unauthorized access to the cargo in the journey. So now I'll further explain how the elog works in operation. So using the same example I mentioned in the last slide, so after the customs clearance is completed at the Hong Kong airport, the cargoes will be loaded onto a truck, and then the truck will be sealed by the elog. And once the truck leaves the airport, the elog is automatically locked. Through a real-time monitoring platform, Hong Kong Customs will closely monitor the status of the elog and the routing of the vehicle. And when the cargo arrives at the land boundary exit point, the elog will be deactivated automatically until it reaches the land boundary control points of the mainland. And by that time, the elog will be reactivated again, and which means the monitoring by the mainland customs will start. And when the truck reaches its destination, the elog will be deactivated. And when necessary, the cargo will be inspected by the mainland customs. So the 2 customs administrations make use of the single elog technology and the GPS devices to monitor the transportation of goods to ensure that they are not tampered within the process. With the assurance that the goods are not tampered, duplicate inspections on the same shipments by the respective customs authorities at the land control points can be reduced so that we can achieve the objectives of streamlined clearance processing and speedy cargo flow. And since 2010, we had a technical advisor that assisted Hong Kong Customs on the application of elog and GPS. The elog system is actually an Internet of Things system that uses GPS, RFID, and 4G to connect the elog and other devices for data exchange. And then the information will be transferred to our real-time monitoring platform for our monitoring. So this innovative elog technology is developed to support multiple control processes to ensure secure operations across different customs control. The use of asymmetric keys ensures the operation security of activating and deactivating of the elog device and enables separate monitoring of 2 customs authorities in absolute integrity, yet independent from each other, so as to ensure seamless and secure monitoring when the transshipment cargo is conveyed across the boundary. And there are 5 features in the elog application that I would like to further introduce to you. And the elog first supports the Beidou navigation satellite system operated by China so that we can achieve high accuracy positioning and navigation. And the battery. The battery of the elog can support continuous operation for no less than 120 hours for continuous monitoring by respective customs authorities. And the elog is required to send positioning and status data at least once every 15 seconds to ensure tight real-time control. And there is a high security data exchange mechanism established within the system as well. And then last, we have a permanent green light on the elog to signify the status of cargo inspection between the 2 customs authorities for reducing repeated inspections. So I kept on mentioning the term clearance points, and here I would like to give you a picture on the volume and location of clearance points in both China and Hong Kong. So currently, the single elog scheme has been extended to over 63 clearance points in Guangdong province of mainland China. And together with the 13 clearance points in Hong Kong, the schemes provide the trade industry with over 800 routes for conveying transshipment cargoes across the boundaries. And we believe that by expanding the number and the location of the clearance point, the coverage would increase and the objectives of the scheme can be optimized. So that's my short presentation today, and I hope I had given you a quick idea on how the single elog works in operation and the technologies behind. So now maybe I'll pass back to Christian for the next presentation.
Thank you very much, Serene, for this very interesting presentation on the smart use of GPS technology. The third case study will be presented by Mrs. Hope Liu, Head of Strategy Asia, MineHub. You already know her from, at least from our panel discussion. Ms. Hope, please show us how MineHub offers blockchain solutions that work with different data regulations, connecting mainland China customers to international networks to streamline their cross-border trade process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope everyone can see my screen. This is Hope from MineHub again. For audiences who missed out the panel session, a very quick introduction about MineHub and myself. Founded in 2018, MineHub is a platform company leveraging blockchain technology to build end-to-end digital solutions for global trade. And we started with mining and metals industry and currently expanding to other trading corridors as well. So MineHub recently become a public listed company at the Toronto Stock Exchange just in last month. And prior to joining MineHub, I've been building enterprise blockchain solutions for global trade in the past 5 years. Really appreciate Mr. Zheng and Ms. Leng sharing their amazing use cases on how customs have leveraged advanced technology to facilitate cross-border paperless trade. Next, I would like to really take this opportunity to share our use case on how MineHub is providing client a blockchain solution that works in multiple jurisdictions with different data regulations, and how we connect mainland China customers to international network to streamline their cross-border trade processes. Cool. To start with, at MineHub, what we do is to offer end-to-end digital solution that connect all the parties in the trade ecosystem so that they can virtually integrate their teams into a shared workflow across companies. In order to reduce the frictions and delay caused by data manual handoff across different parties involved in the cross-border trade, at MineHub, we provide a trusted data infrastructure to support the real-time information sharing cross-actor, cross-machine, cross-border through a single version of the truth, so that user can reduce the complexity of building all the point-to-point connections with different security and governance standards. And we believe this will become the foundation for real-time collaboration and interoperability across actors and solutions for paperless cross-border trade. So I would like to talk about how we achieve that by leveraging blockchain technology and offering multiple hosting options in order to support different clients' needs and to comply with specific country regulations. So we enable users to share data between companies securely through blockchain to ensure that data is not manipulated and distributed through peer-to-peer connections with no central data holder. So MineHub is built on Hyperledger Fabric 2.2, which introduced the concept of private data collection, PDC. So the PDC is only visible by the data owner. Most importantly, data can stay in the country of the owner, for example, mainland China. So all data of mainland China clients will be stored locally on the client environment, including the data stores hosted in mainland China. And the clients can determine which data is shared with counterparty outside mainland China, taking into account any regulations on handling business sensitive data. And let's see how this translates into a real world use case. So on the left-hand side, there is a cross-border trade happening between a miner in Singapore and a buyer. So the miner with their private data collection, PDC, in Singapore, buyer in mainland China with their own PDC. In order to create a buy-sell agreement, miner can initiate and share data with the buyer, who would then receive it and store it locally in China. After that, the buyer can upload data and decide how to share it. So now the agreement has happened and the logistics needs to happen. So we move to the right-hand side and switch to the view of a warehouse operations in the port in China. So a mill picks up iron ore from stockpile, and this inventory movement is recorded in the China-based PDC of the warehouse operator. They then share with the owner of the inventory outside of China, and later with the financier in Hong Kong. So you can see that in this transaction involves movement of information, goods, and money, and all the parties have the same view in real time, and data is accurately reflected across borders, and data residence compliance requirements are also met. So we believe that our architecture is essential to allow technical solutions to scale across geographical, political, and regulatory borders. So why this architecture is so important right now? Because this architecture model has made MyHub technically compliant to the China laws and regulation. So China is moving from the 2017 cybersecurity law to the new 2021 cyber law, and this applies to companies and individuals operating in or controlling data from mainland China, including multinations with operations and data in mainland China. And at MyHub, we have set up different environments and implemented several controls to comply with regulations and client demand. To implement our data infrastructure hosting model described in the use case you just saw, we have been collaborating with AWS China to set up China MyHub nodes in view of data residence requirements in China. And we're happy to share with the audience that the MyHub cross-border connectivity components have passed the initial assessment and review with local service provider. So to be specific, the software-defined WAN with service provider Wangsu is already in our production environment with an availability commitment of 99.9%. And we have been using this connectivity to support testing and live production environment for high-value cross-border trade between an international mining company and a China state-owned enterprise. And similar to this use case we have just described happened in China, MyHub also offers multiple hosting options globally to support different client needs and to comply with specific country regulations globally as the foundation for real-time collaboration and connecting to different solutions for paperless cross-border trade. With that, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to share our use case today, and we welcome questions and interest from the audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Hope. Thank you for this interesting use case, which shows potential of trusted and reliable blockchain solutions. We have some questions about the slides. All slides will be available on the ESCAP webinar website after the webinar. So I would now like to start with the Q&A session, where we will select some questions to address to the speakers. I can see one question from Tom Henry Tauporn. If you would like to present the question yourself, please click to raise your hand and your audio will be put through. The question is addressed to MyHub, to Ms. Hope. Do we have him in the queue?
I don't see.
If not, I will read out the question. What are some of the challenges you face at MyHub, maybe also regarding the cooperation and participation with partners? So, Ms. Hope, can you answer this question, please?
Sure. So am I understanding correctly that the questions about the challenges we meet for adoption as well as the partner with the partners? Is my understanding correct? Because I don't see the
yes,
question.
with the partners, yes.
Okay.
Partners.
Okay. Cool. Very valid question. So because at MyHub, we aim at connecting with the partners in the trade ecosystem so that we can give clients interoperability as well as options. So that's one of our key strategic focus. Make sure we integrate with systems and standards of our customers' product flow. And we're working hard to collaborate with partners in the industry to provide a more seamless user experience. So we have been working on integration with partners like eDocs for trade documents, Contour for electronic letter of credit, and we'll be building our ability to connect and integrate with more existing third-party systems this year. I would say the challenge is that if some of our clients are on different platforms and solutions, we don't want to force them to choose or change the way they used to work. So the other focus area is actually very relevant to this webinar, because one of our focus area is also to decouple solutions for title insurance transfer verification, along with changes in legislation and contract law for electronic title transfer. So we will be incorporating open source standards into our platform term of use so that the customers can use the system they want to or have chosen to work with. And integration through open standards will also remove the need to do extra work across different platforms with our partners in the future. Yeah, so hopefully I answered the question. Thank you.
Yes, thanks a lot, Hope. We have a second question also addressed to MyHub. It's from Gloria Pasadilla. I hope I have spoken this out correctly. If you would like to raise this question with your audio, please raise your hand. Do we have her in the queue?
Oh,
yeah.
I think the question was because the whole system depends on the credibility of the data and the trust in the data, and I think I was asking about whether MyHub will have liability in case the data that was inputted was inaccurate. So what sort of liability does MyHub face, given the fact that they are in charge of the system?
Cool. Because thank you very much for the question, Gloria. So right now we offer data infrastructure layer to enable the real-time data sharing to streamline the cross-border process. So at this moment, we don't have access to clients' private data to be held liable with, because we introduced the private data store, PDC, on Hyperledger Fabric 2.2, which is only visible by the data owner, and specific data sets can be shared with other users, which results in the copy in the other PDC. However, in the future, especially when the effort of open source rulebook, which would bring interoperability across different systems for assets, such as electronic bill of lading or warehouse receipt. So we would be adopting the open source rulebook so that we can be interoperable. We can also offer title transfer insurance so that clients can move assets between our platform and other platforms. So once we offer this kind of asset title transfer service, then yes, we will be adding that. We will be adding our platform liability and insurance to adjust to the nature of the service we're providing. But still, we believe that in the future, by adopting the open source standard of rulebook, will enable interoperability across different systems. It will be still a better user experience and to increase the level of penetration of electronic BL and other trade documents in cross-border trade. Thank you.
Thank you, Hope. So I think we have time for one more question. So if you would like to raise a question, just raise your hand and we will put you to the audio. I will give you a few seconds to raise your hand. Now, so also given to the time, I would like to close the Q&A session and would like to give the floor to Mr. Armin Manukian to wrap up the meeting. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you. I would like just to make very short remarks on the closing. I think we have heard very interesting case studies, and also we learned about what international organizations are doing, because it's not very important to have all these disruptive technologies in different sectors, in customs, in trade environment, in the cooperation between the customs and the private sector, but also very important what international organizations such as World Customs Organization, UN, specialized agencies are doing to standardize, because we know from the past experience that it's not enough to have, let's say, technologies that are enabling the cross-border paperless trade, but it's also we need to have standards that are compliant with all of those that are on the field. And for this purpose, it is also very important that we mention that the framework agreement for the facilitation of cross-border trade in Asia Pacific, this is a kind of umbrella under which all these implementations, exchanges of information, trade transactions are happening. And this umbrella that already have 7 members, 7 countries from Asia Pacific members, will provide a kind of umbrella for standards, and all these exchanges of information and trade transactions will be under this. So it is very important that countries, members of ESCAP, join to this agreement, and so to comply, therefore to provide easier interoperability between the different platforms, different technologies, different solutions that are available for the cross-border trade. And for with this note, I would like just to launch the video, very short video, 1-minute video, what is about the framework agreement for the Asia Pacific. And please, Natabon, can you please launch the video? Just a short introduction before we close the session. Thank you, Paul, for this. This was the framework agreement, what I was talking about. Now I would like to thank all the speakers, participants, and the co-organizers. On behalf of the co-organizers, to express our gratefulness to join, to have found time to join us during this very important webinar. And I would like to also ask the participants, please provide your feedback during the survey that you are going to receive, and you will have the link for the survey also in the chat box. Please provide your feedback so we can improve and find interesting topics for multi-stakeholders all over the cross-border environment, from the private sector, from the public sector, and all the parties involved in the trade. And I would like also to mention about our next webinar. It's going to be on the 23rd of November. And it is also a very important topic. It's about the trade finance gap, because let's say that the COVID-19 impacted not only global transactions, meaning that physical transactions of goods and people, but also the financing of all those transactions. So trade finance is very important, and shortcomings in trade finance and how we are going to, let's say, face those shortcomings is very important to understand, because it's the back end, how to say, it's behind the scenes of the cross-border transactions. On this note, I would like to thank you everyone again, WCO, ICC, ADB, all the co-organizers, and of course, our very valued participants and audience. Thank you very much. Bye, everyone.